Hello everyone, welcome back to the RotoViz Best Ball Show. My name is Colm Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at OvertimeIreland, and I am joined once again by a man becoming a bit of a regular here on the show. It is Conor O'Driscoll. We have talked on RotoViz Overtime, myself and Sean Siegel, quite a bit about the great work that Conor is doing. Obviously, Conor won the FFPC Best Ball Tournament in 2021, pipped us to the post. We came in second place in that tournament, but it's great to have him back. We are going to do another draft. We did one last week, Conor. We're going to jump in. We're going to do it again. You can let me know. This is how impromptu we're going here. We're like, do we want to draft? We're going to jump in. Are we drafting in BBM3 or are we drafting in the puppy tree?
This is a BBM draft.
This is it. We're going for the big prizes. We're not messing about.
Right. I don't get out of bed for less than 2 million. I've already won 100,000. The smaller prizes don't interest me anymore.
That's a bit of a
flex.
They
do, but
yeah. That's a bit of a Draco's doing some flexing here at the start of the show, so we'll see. We are waiting for one person as we fill up this draft room. For people listening in, we're drafting this one at 7:40 a.m. Eastern time. I'm drafting it at just after noon my time, so it does take a little bit longer in the morning times for these to fill up, but we are waiting on one additional person. What draft slot are you hoping to get here, Draco, as it has filled, but it hasn't yet told us the spot?
Anything in the top 5, right? Ooh, we didn't get top 5. We got 6th.
This is a step in the right direction for me, though. A step in the right direction. I had been on a hot streak, and that cooled off quite drastically. I've actually liked how my drafts have played out from the back end of the draft, though. So I'm looking forward to this one. 6th is a nice, 5 or 6 can be quite nice. You get, you can be like, maybe that guy falls back to us. Whereas if you're drafting at the start or the end of the round, sometimes you're like, if I want to get that guy on my team, I have to take him 8 picks earlier. Whereas on the other side of things, you're like, maybe if we last 4 more picks, we get a steal there. So we are picking from the 6th spot. What are you hoping happens here? I'm hoping that one of those top 3 wide receivers does a little slide to us.
That's always the hope. If you get one of these slots, so somebody takes Derrick Henry or something, maybe Austin Eckler goes a little bit early.
I've seen we love Saquon Barkley, but I've seen Barkley climb up into that first round a couple of times here over the last week.
Yeah, his march has been steady, and he definitely feels like a guy. Even in the second round, we used to get him in the 3rd, but even in the second round, you're like, oh, I'm still happy to take him because I feel like by the end of the draft season, he will be in the 1st round regularly.
Something that yourself and Sean had done some work on, we've talked on the Best Ball Show about, is the hyper-fragile approach in 2022. But when that really started, that drumbeat, that happened. He was in the 3rd round at that particular point. So things have changed over the last 2 months, but we may still have an opportunity to do that approach or a hero RB approach. But I think the words you were going to say is it doesn't seem like Jamar Chase is going to get to us. We're 1 pick away. And he doesn't go. So we have the regular start here. The players we expect to go off the board have gone off the board. Are we going for Stefan Diggs?
I've got 1,000,000% Stefan Diggs, but I'm happy to make it 1,001%.
Let's go. 1,001,000 seems like a very high exposure rate to a player, but we'll go for Diggs. Yeah. I think when we're at this point, I've been interested. I haven't drafted Austin Eckler very often because I've been drafting, thankfully, a little bit earlier. But I think we'll go with Diggs here for the brand.
And then just you might have to tell Sean this. They turned on an autopilot feature, whereas if you auto 2 drafts, 2 picks in a row, they turn you on autopilot, so you don't get your 30-second clock anymore. You'll have to toggle that off. So
that seems like fun. Maybe we just don't time out. And I think what you mean there by telling Sean is when we are doing these shows, not to let that happen. So I'm pretty sure that Ben and Sean are planning to draft over this weekend. So maybe we'll hear stories of that on an
right. Yeah, let them find out the hard way.
Yeah. So after we select Stefan Diggs, Austin Eckler goes off the board, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry. So we're very much what we would expect in the 1st round here. But looking at it, I was saying I hadn't drafted much Austin Eckler, but I think he still could be a very, very interesting play as that 3rd running back off the board in these drafts. But I haven't had to do it. And in that situation there, and some people will notice this with some of the streams we're doing, some of the drafts we're doing, there will be times where, like, you mentioned you have a lot of Stefan Diggs and you're like, maybe I'll just go and take Austin Eckler. There will be decisions we make, and that's based on sometimes volume drafting and trying to balance out exposures. And not like we talk a lot about we can be wrong in a lot of situations, and we will be wrong. So, taking those shots also help potentially not be wrong all the time. So Saquon Barkley could be an option here. DeAndre Swift could be an option. Debo then, who just goes off the board, as I mentioned.
I was just going to click him, and he went. I think we either get our pick of these, or they're going to select them for us.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good move here to try and go in and get kind of a hero running back build here and see how it plays out. The other players that kind of go in this range, Mike Evans' ADP hasn't really dropped all that much. He goes in this range. Mark Andrews, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins then is the player who would go. So Swift goes. I'm happy to go Barkley here if you want
easy pick, right? We were already talking about happy to pick him in the second. Feel like he's going to be in the first. This is a bit of a wild draft here. You see AJ Brown went to the 201. Kelsey falls all the way into the second. Javonte Williams 203. We're getting these are some these are not some ADP drafters. Like they're willing to take some swings.
Hopefully that works out for us. Usually, it's interesting though. That's as high as I've seen AJ Brown. I was wondering, was that a Ben Gretsch led team? But AJ Brown going at the 201 there. CeeDee Lamb going with him. That is an interesting pair of wide receivers in terms of upside for this season. I haven't been drafting Lamb a lot because of the good draft slots. You'll probably hear this throughout the draft with some of the players we take. But over the last week, I've got a healthy exposure to CeeDee Lamb, thankfully, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on this season. But we look here and we are 3 picks away. We have T. Higgins in the queue. We have Mike Williams in the queue. We have Kyle Pitts in the queue. Done some shows this week when we talked on Stadium Bananas and on RotoViz Overtime around why are we so high on Kyle Pitts? Are we too high? And do we have concerns around him and Marcus Mariota? The kind of answer to that was not really. And Ben went with an alpha comparison, and the alpha comparison that was Calvin Johnson. So let's not get our hype too high, but Kyle Pitts in the 3rd round is very interesting. I think if he gets one more pick here, I'm just going to smile so much and we'll have T. Higgins on our roster. But are we going to get nipped here?
I think we'd be very, very happy. Oh my God.
Baby.
Let's go.
That is nice. Yeah.
So that's it. The Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, week 17 correlation. And we got Saquon Barkley. Like I'd be willing to bet most of the Diggs Higgins teams do not have Saquon Barkley.
I would imagine so. I've been taking T. Higgins at the back end of that 2nd round quite often, pairing him up with AJ Brown as well. So AJ Brown, as we mentioned, went a little bit earlier in this. But we are going to have we should. I was about to jinx ourselves there. We will have some options we really like, I think, when it comes back here in the 4th round. If Kyle Pitts lasted, that would just be, I might even get up and do a little dance at that point, but Jalen Waddle might be there. DJ Moore does go off the board. We talked about the ascent in ADP for Saquon Barkley. We have seen a steady drumbeat for DJ Moore. I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield fan, but I am quite a large DJ Moore fan. So hopefully that works out, but he is continuing to climb in ADP. Kyle Pitts does go off the board. That is 9 picks away from us, so we can't really feel too bad. Who are some of your preferred options here in the 4th round when it comes back to us at the 406?
So something would have been interesting. I think we're still dancing if Jalen Waddle makes it to us. We might want to think about Breece Hall. You want to be a little bit realistic. I tend to think Gabe Davis is a little bit overdrafted. But if we are building out this week 17 correlation, I think that's interesting. I do notice that the Denver Broncos guys, they haven't really jumped up after the Tim Patrick ACL news, and they should. This is very good. This is obviously terrible news overall, but it is good news for their fantasy prospects. And you think maybe that might have been because they're kind of a little bit elevated already, or
I think there was an elevation around obviously having Russell Wilson as the quarterback. I think they probably would have been going, they were a little probably high for me. They're very close. I've been kind of drafting the 2nd one that is available. I like both guys a lot, and I like them with Russell Wilson. We also like KJ Hamler. Jerry Jeudy just goes off the board at the 403, but I think they were elevated that little bit already, and it was hard to continue. I was surprised that they didn't move a little bit, though, because I do think we're seeing some overreactions to training camp news. But when somebody who is expected to probably be the 3rd wide receiver on the roster gets injured, missing the season at this point, I'm surprised they haven't bumped up a little bit. You mentioned Gabe Davis.
He was always a spoiler as well. the guy who he gets 5 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown, and I guess it's not lighting the world on fire, but it's you're oh my god,
Oh
we can't take like
baby.
Jalen Waddle here, right?
Oh yeah. This could be a dream here. This could be the winning ticket.
This
We
team
have
is
started
looking
this off.
very, very good now.
Yeah, I like you said if Waddle got back, I was like, that's probably not going to happen. So that is a lovely start of Stephon Diggs, Saquon Barkley, T. Higgins, and Jalen Waddle. So to get somebody who we think could be in the mix for the running back 1 overall and to have those 3 wide receivers and then to pair that in with the correlation with the Bills and Bengals without really having to force any of it is quite nice to start things off. Allen Robinson did go 1 pick ahead of Jalen Waddle there. Terry McLaurin goes after him. Deontay Johnson, who's after getting a big contract, goes in the next pick. The other player I would have been interested in seeing if he slid there would have been Breece Hall, but somebody I've drafted quite a bit with those back end of the first round selections, and then obviously when we get into the round or two after that, I've been seeing, and this is particularly at the FFPC, I've been seeing James Conner slide a little bit, and I've picked him up a few times. Somebody who I hadn't been drafting at all previously, but I think maybe there's an opportunity to buy. But you mentioned Gabriel Davis. I do think when we look at the different formats and the different websites, Sean has talked quite a bit about trying to get Hawkinson maybe in this here format versus not getting him in the tight end premium format, which is interesting to talk about, but based on where their ADP is and letting them slide a little bit. So somebody who I've been doing that a little bit with now is Connor is sliding over there, but Gabriel Davis in particular is quite a bit easier to draft at the FFPC than it is in this format, which is also interesting. But I think that is down to the week 17 correlation plays. Myself and yourself have talked off air about the field and those finals being smaller at the FFPC, which also leads to not having to beat out as many people with the correlations in week 17. So I think Davis's ADP is a little bit of a part of that. And the other thing that I would highlight there is we've talked about it a bit on RotoViz Overtime as well, but Gabriel Davis's dynasty price is kind of not reflecting what his real life price is in terms of
his value is probably higher in dynasty. Like his
well, I think it's higher,
lower.
I think though it's more costly to get him in redraft than dynasty, which isn't usually the thought process with a younger player.
But what I mean is the younger player, you're getting more value from them in dynasty. But I think we're laughing here. We've gotten their values, we've gotten their anchor or B start, and now we're getting the last of the elite tight ends.
If you want to go Kettle, I'm happy to go. You're the guy writing the premium articles about these. The player, if Kettle hadn't been there, I would have pitched for would have been DK Metcalf or Rashad Bateman. I've been drafting Metcalf a lot. I've never really gone off the DK Metcalf bandwagon, I guess, over the course of the off season. I think he'll still put up, particularly in best ball, he will put up a lot of big weeks. So he's somebody I'm continuing to draft. We get George Kittle. So now we have 1 running back, 3 wide receivers. We have our elite tight end. I don't really know. I know 1v1, I probably prefer Darren Waller versus George Kittle. Who scores the most fantasy points this season? If we play that out in the range where it comes, it's gonna
the RotoViz range of outcomes app has. Do you know who the number 1 tight end in that? It's George Kittle.
You're going to tell me it's George Kittle. I was thinking when you were lining that up, you were going to go with something that was very positive for us. So George Kittle, I think, is the best tight end in the NFL. But as an NFL tight end,
if the humans were playing a game of football against an alien race for the survival of humanity, then George Kittle as our TE1.
That's our plan here. We're sending them into the BBM3 finals. I think that opens up some other options. So we have some teams here that we like to kind of stack together, opens up some opportunities potentially at quarterback and things like that. So Jalen Hurts goes off the board at quarterback, but 5 picks in. I really don't think this could be going to a whole lot better for us here at the moment, Connor. Just for anyone playing over at Underdog Fantasy, if you want to sign up, use the code RotoViz. You can get yourself a 100% sign-up bonus up to $100. And then, of course, you can challenge myself and Connor here for this team that is going to take it all down in the BBM3. We are back on the clock. Who are your tasty options here? We do have an option to potentially go J.K. Dobbins. Elijah Moore's there.
I think these are, I think I probably lean Joe Burrow.
I think I go Dobbins based on ADP. I think we have a
All right.
chance to Burrow.
Yeah, let's play the ADP game. And then we also, if we miss on Burrow, we can also get Lance, hopefully, who is also in that next round range.
It really depends sometimes draft to draft who is going with Trey Lance. This was a topic on Stealing Bananas over the past week. We do miss out on Joe Burrow, who does go one pick later.
He has Jamar Chase, so
yeah, so that is fair enough. But when we look at it, I think that draft to draft, we do see the ADP changing a lot of these quarterbacks, the likes of a Trey Lance. I think it's going to be interesting to see. How are you feeling now that we do miss out on Burrow? We get J.K. Dobbins, though, which I really do like the Dobbins pick here. How are you feeling about going with the quarterback here and Trey Lance at this?
I mean, Trey Lance is probably the true cutoff of the elite quarterbacks. So I whenever you're drafting, you always want to be drafting the last guy in the tier. You can't do that every time, obviously. But getting the last tight end in the elite tier, and if we can get the last quarterback in the elite tier, I think we are looking very, very good. We are already looking very, very good, but it can only make our team stronger.
By ADP here, for people listening along, we are going to be picking right around the ADP spot for Trey Lance. We'll be picking his ADP at the moment 75. We're going to be picking here at 78. So I was just having a look.
Yeah, it would be a bit of a value, I suppose.
Yeah, but we'll see how it plays out. We do have other options. There's a lot of wide receivers I did like in this range. Brandon Ayuk's another player I'd like in this range, but obviously I would prioritize the quarterback here. We will have the option of the likes of a Devontae Smith, Drake London, Brandon Ayuk, who I mentioned. So there is other ways to play this. In hindsight, now that we obviously this will tell in 2 picks time if we don't get Trey Lance, but if we don't get Trey Lance, will that be a regret of yours passing up on Joe Burrow at the point to take J.K. Dobbins?
I think so, but he does make it back to us. Tom Brady actually gets selected over Trey Lance. So we are going to take Trey Lance. Right?
We are.
So I guess he had Mike Evans, so he was completing the stack. I think we've talked about this before, where stacking and correlation is important, except for when it makes you take Tom Brady over Trey Lance.
Yeah, and also, so if we look at that team, and it's not to pick it out, I think go get your guys, but Joe Burrow went to that team as well, about 7 to 8 picks over ADP, and then similar there for Tom Brady. So reaching on both of those. So in hindsight, we get Trey Lance and J.K. Dobbins. They do get Joe Burrow and Tom Brady, but they're passing up some other values who, when I talked about having this spot in the middle of the round, you can kind of let it see if those guys do slide back to you. And I think that's worked out really well for us. Dream pick for me here is either Devontae Smith or Brandon Ayuk. I don't know if they will last back to us, but that would certainly be an optimal situation if one of those do slide back.
I think we're also, one thing that I do sometimes when I pick Kittle, because you get the nice price on him, we got him in. We got Kittle in the 5th round. I don't think it's egregious to take TJ Hawkinson as well, where you get the extreme value on Hawkinson, and then you truly have this kind of like best of both worlds bully tight end setup where you are going to. I don't think we're going to have to. I think we probably get a value scoop here. It looks like. Sky
Moore just went at the 803, so a little bit of a bump there for him. But we're going to have options here. We have, that could kill me saying that, but we have 2 picks to go. Treylon Burks goes off the board. So there's 3 options in our queue. There's still 3 options in our queue. We're 1 pick away. You mentioned the Hawkinson play, but I feel like we should go Ayuk here with the hope that Hawkinson may slide back to us.
You don't think we take the 19 pick?
Okay. We're also,
he did go.
He went. That would have probably made sense, but at ADP with the stack, and it's not even at ADP, it is a 9 pick slide for Brandon Ayuk, I think makes sense here.
Yeah, we are obviously very happy with our team.
We were almost value hound in there with Devontae Smith. I think Devontae Smith would be the play if it wasn't the case that we had Trey Lance. I think having Trey Lance, and for anyone listening in, I think that was your dog we could hear in the back doing the value hound there for us. So really adding in the special effects on today's show. 809, we do see TJ Hawkinson go. I was going to say you're not going to have to debate with me very much if you want to draft TJ Hawkinson, but I think Brandon Ayuk was still the right way to go. How are you feeling about the roster so far?
Obviously very pleased. I think we're actually kind of in like an ideal construction, sort of like very GTO-y, where we've gotten the elite. We've gotten the early running back, so we're at an anchor RB start. We've gotten an elite tight end. We've gotten an elite quarterback, and also in the old quarterback window. When by old quarterback window, I mean round 6 through 12. So we haven't had to pay a lot, and then we've also gotten these very nice values on our wide receivers. We did take Stephon Diggs. We have that nice week 17 correlation with value T. Higgins. We got Jalen Waddle, a couple of picks after ADP. We've got Brandon Ayuk after ADP, George Kittle after ADP. Like we're literally value handing attractive like correlations here. Like,
we're a couple of ADP bros here as we get through this draft.
I mean, like people say, correlation is overdone. People try to overstack, but like you get these opportunities where you can get your stacks at
this
value.
Is exactly the way to do it. This is like after ADP, at ADP, not reaching, getting your players where they're meant to go, rather than what we talked about a little bit with the stacks for the team drafting beside us. Even though we're more disappointed that they sniped us on the pick or took Joe Burrow after us, but we're into a spot here, one pick away. How are you feeling about where we should go here?
I think Devin Singletary is the easy pick. What do you think?
Well, you're not going to get me to take anyone to stop us from drafting Devin Singletary. The other player I would say here that I would put in that mix would be Ramondre Stevenson. Either of those guys, I'm happy to go with. You can make the selection. Both of those guys I'm in on this year. Okay.
Happy to be wrong. Lots of very smart people disagree with me. But I would strongly prefer Devin Singletary over Ramondre.
I just love the fact that I can like be the person trying to be like, are you sure you want Singletary? Do you want Singletary? It's like every other show I've done, it's like, I just want Singletary, give me Singletary. So that worked out nice. People can't say,
I hear you. You can basically hide behind me and be the person who appears smarter. It's like, oh, let's consider these other options where secretly you do want Singletary. You just know.
I want Singletary. My problem is limiting my times that I can draft him. So we have an ongoing bet in the best ball show. I often will message Zachary Kruger and be like, draft a Singletary again. It's got to the point now where I'm just calling him Devin. So we get Devin there with that pick, but it gives us a running back room so far of Barkley, Dobbins, and Singletary. It also gives us access to that game, which should be very high scoring in the Bills and the Bills and the Bengals in week 17. So we are 5 picks away, so we have time to think through it. Ramondre Stevenson, for somebody getting a little bit of camp buzz. Myself and Sean talked about it on a RotoViz OT recently. Sean wrote about him this week. I think that the upside is incredible for him. It's just that little bit tricky. I'm always reluctant with the Patriots backfield because Bill Belichick has exactly what he wants. He has a bunch of superstar running backs who are very, very good. Maybe not superstar, but they are like top tier running backs, and it's going to be interesting. We are back on the clock. You have Rondale Moore in the queue. You have Kenneth Walker in the queue. I think for how we're building things out, I would be going wide receiver here unless you feel strongly to take Walker.
Well, we do know that one of the key rules of drafting, and it's like you don't have to do it every time, but you really should be looking to do it, is you want 5 wide receivers by round 10, by the end of round 10. And we're obviously very pleased with the receivers that we've gotten so far. But we just have to understand that the drop off is pretty significant from here. Whereas I think we're going to still be getting running backs that we like for a while. And to be honest, looking at it, we've gotten 3 in the first 10 rounds with an anchor RB build. I think we're going to want to stop at 5 here. So only 2 more running backs we need, where we do need we need to, I guess, be looking at other positions.
Yeah, and this is one of the challenges that does come up when you do take those running backs at this point of the draft, particularly those first 2 guys. So we take Saquon, we take J.K. Dobbins, and then obviously now we have Devin Singletary. But when we're doing a 0 RB draft or a pure hero RB draft, we pass on Dobbins. That's where the likes of Kenneth Walker becomes the guy to get. And
right,
I have a lot of rosters with Penny, Walker, or Singletary, and they're all going in that same range. Then usually you're dipping in here where the likes of Rashad White would be going. So there's lots of options we do like here. But even again, White would be interesting, but I'm probably leaning to a different position. We'll see how it gets to us.
Right. I'm not even looking at construction right now. I'm just like looking at players I actually want.
And I'm not high on Tua really in general. I'm sure I'm kind of really in the middle on how it goes. But when we're drafting Waddle like we have, and you also have a situation where he does now have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I think you could get into some interesting Miami Dolphins positions here if that was to work out for us a little bit later at the quarterback to get that second quarterback. Because I do think, and at that point of drafts, he may have the most upside of all the quarterbacks that are remaining.
Right.
Who are you looking to target here?
Tua is the other one that I considered. And I'm like, do I really want to reach on Tua? But is there anybody here who's screaming at you?
At the moment in this list of the down as far as Tua, there's nobody screaming. I have plenty of exposure at the moment to Julio Jones at much later prices. Could get into tight end, but there is other tight ends that I'm going to look to get later in the draft. So with the Dolphins, with the Singletary, or not the Singletary, sorry, the Waddle pick, the Patriots are the team they will be playing in week 17, but I think there's Patriots players that we can draft later that I would rather get. So I'm willing here. We talked about not reaching, but I'm not really in on Kirk Cousins this year. And we also, I think, can pair Tua with Waddle.
I think our opportunity cost to take Tua here is really low.
I think, just to name off the players, so we have Kirk Cousins, who is well below ADP 10 picks at this point, but we do pass him up. But there is Alexander Mattison, Christian Watson, Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers, Darrell Henderson, who is somebody I like to draft, but at this point, with the 3 running backs we have willing to pass, Ronald Jones is in the mix there as well. And as I say that, Darrell Henderson goes off the board. But you're into like the Josh Palmer, Michael Gallup, Ronald Jones, who is somebody else I'd be looking to target. But those are the players that are going. And I am not jumping to draft any of those guys with our current construction over the quarterback, who I believe with 2, top 5 round, no matter how much they slide in ADP, wide receivers. Also, somebody I think is fairly solid runner or tight end in Mike Gesicki. I think Tua probably should be going a little bit higher, and he's usually going quite close to Justin Fields, who in this draft went much earlier. So I think
I like Tua as a breakout candidate. I'm not drafting him overly much, but I like him as a breakout candidate because, like, obviously they've stacked the offensive with weapons. They've upgraded the offensive line. They've gotten in a new offensive coordinator. A
very good offensive coordinator, if we are to be
offensive coordinator, a new head coach, who was a very good offensive coordinator. He is a mobile guy. So you will get rushing touchdowns on the ground.
I think the fear with him as well from the mobility comes from the injury that he suffered pre-NFL draft. And that is still there. But we talk about, people coming back from Achilles tears and, takes them the year after. But like, he's still coming back from quite a serious injury. So we should continue to see that improve. The other possibility is that it never gets back to what it was before the injury. But I just think, at this point, we take shots on him. I'm in a lot of drafts, particularly the super flex drafts over at the FFPC, where I'm deciding, do I go Tua or do I go Fields? They're basically going within 3 or 4 picks of each other, and I am very much exposed to Justin Fields at this point, so I may even have to pivot that to start to take Tua, because I do like Fields. And if you look at it, I like Fields from the rushing perspective, but if you look at the weapons that Tua has versus the weapons that Justin Fields has, there's not really a comparison there.
Right. It's a different planet.
Yeah, so I am quite happy to take that reach. I know we've kind of talked. The reason I wanted to talk about that is we did reach. We talked earlier about trying not to reach. So that makes sense. We're back on the clock though. Who are you feeling here? As Kirk Cousins is still there, but I think we could potentially get a second tight end and Mike Gesicki here and really load into the Dolphins.
I don't know about Gesicki here.
Okay.
Just because we know that we love the tight ends later on. Dotson is just somebody who he's got the steady drum beat. I know I've done a Sean Siegel on you here.
You've just done me in there.
I let the clock run down. There was no other choice.
There was. It's a bit of a flat here. I would be probably pivoting at that point. I haven't drafted Dotson very often, but I like KJ Osborne in this range, but there's a lot of tight ends that go here. So at the moment, Pat Fairmouth just goes off the board after us. Mike Gesicki is there. Then we're into the Albert Okwuegbunam stage. I did get a comment on YouTube this week about, it was actually a link to the proper pronunciation of Albert O. So maybe I should just go back to that. I did listen to the proper pronunciation and I didn't think I was too far off, but maybe I'll just go back to Albert O again to avoid those.
Well, if somebody's sending you pronunciation guides,
you're probably not pronouncing it correctly. Is that what you're saying?
Probably not. I think we're probably, with our Irish tongues, we're probably at a disadvantage with these names.
We are now 5 picks away. A couple of players that are in here that I really do like is Kenneth Gainwell and Michael Carter. It depends if we want to kind of we could start to really lock up our running back position here. Jameson Williams is somebody I've drafted as that I think will be an absolute late season hammer.
Right.
How are you feeling here though? Running backs, or Hunter Henry is there, who would be a comeback or a bring back against the situation with the Dolphins in week 17.
I'm not 100% sure about him, but I think we should consider him, Hunter Henry here, because like you said, he's a bring back. He obviously tight end touchdowns are very emphasized in this format with the half PPR. Hunter Henry, probably very live to get multiple 2 touchdown or 1 to 2 touchdown games. Think we should consider Michael Carter. Oh, don't even get the opportunity.
The one thing I would say here is I think we're really into tight end range. If you want to let it slide one more round, but that is where Gerald Everett comes into play as well as Albert O, and then you're starting to get into Noah Fant. So we can go tight end here if you want. The other option is
your pick. I stole the last pick.
I think we go Carter here. I think Carter's the play. The other thing I'm just noticing is Kittle and Albert O. That's what
share a bye week.
Yeah, I just wanted to stretch out the O. That's what I'm going to do from now on. But they have the same bye week, which could have put us into a 3 tight end build. My tight end here is going to be Gerald Everett, but
it wouldn't have. I've still got the controls. I like to give you the illusion that you can tell me, but we were never selecting 3 tight ends in this build column.
So were you going to go with Alberto?
He's gone. So
no, in the last pick when it wasn't.
I was torn. Honestly, they all seemed like good picks to me.
Are you saying that it would have been a 2 tight end build with the joint bye week and you wouldn't have cared? Is that the way we were going there? Bye weeks don't matter.
You're going to worry about 5 points in the regular season? Nah.
We'll be fine. But Everett would be my pick coming up. Jameson Williams continues to slide. He's currently 12 picks after ADP. He is somebody I really do like, but obviously the injury concerns are there. If we miss on Everett, who is a target here, Fant is my next target.
Right, let's throw him in there so we don't forget.
In the meantime, then we do have some other players that do pair off, but any other players in this range, just say we miss out on them. Terry and Davis Price is somebody who's there, but who I really like getting Carter there to go with what we have already. So I'm willing to pass here on running back.
Yeah.
The other player that I wanted to mention is I did pare this down. The Colts week 17 game is, I believe, the New York Giants. So we would potentially have Paris Campbell as a target here for me as well, to go against Saquon Barkley in that one. So we'll see if that works out for us. Everett went 1 pick before us.
Gerald Everett goes
2 picks before us. So we're into an interesting portion here. The draft is going extremely well. I'm really pleased with how we're running here. We do miss out on the tight end, but we're right in that range where he would normally go. We are 1 pick away. What's your hope here?
I think that Noah Fant is really the last tight end that we're happy to have. And it's
Let's go back to the
half
full.
a round
Back,
reach.
yeah, go back to the full queue for me first. Just check the full queue. It will auto pick him anyway, but
I don't think we're.
you don't want to risk Paris Campbell.
I'm happy to risk Paris Campbell, to be honest.
Okay. Let's go Paris Campbell. I'm going to force that one on you. Go Paris Campbell. Take Paris Campbell. Take Paris Campbell. No. Oh, my goodness. We don't take Paris Campbell for everyone listening in.
Why? Why? I don't understand that one. He plays for the Colts. Matt Ryan is like a pretty old quarterback. He's got a long injury history. We can take him here.
If he gets back to us, we're definitely taking him. If he gets back to us here, we're definitely taking him now that we have our tight end. The play there is that he is somebody who is, when healthy, always look good. He's in this offense, which, look, I know I'm more of a Matt Ryan guy than Sean is, but I think Matt Ryan's very much past his peak. But in this offense, he is better than Carson Wentz. And I do think that if healthy, Paris Campbell can be somebody who, particularly when we're into the 15th round, gives upside. If we're looking at this point, we're into Wendell Robinson is actually now peered into my eyesight. So Wendell Robinson to the top of the queue, please. So yeah, there's a couple of interesting wide receivers here. Yeah,
you demand that I take him in the last round, but now you don't even want him at the top of the queue.
We'll see. I think Wendell, one of these guys isn't getting back to us, so we'll hopefully get the other one. But no, I thought that the process there is there's a couple of wide receivers who I really like in this range. And you mentioned tight ends that you wouldn't go for. I'm still drafting the rookie tight ends as well, but the problem with those guys is we tend to need to go with a 3 tight end and probably take 2 of the rookies.
Honestly, the rookies, I like the rookies way more on FFPC.
Same.
Where it's a lot more favorable to taking the 3 tight ends. There's 20 roster spots. You've got the tight end premium. And so if they do break out, you're getting a substantial hit. My worry with the rookies here is that rookie tight ends are historically not great, and then even if you do get some kind of mini breakout, it's like, how valuable is that really in a half PPR format? With only 1 flex spot, where the 2 flex spots, the tight end premium, the extra roster spots. To me, that's really where you want to be taking the rookie tight ends.
Yeah, and Paris Campbell goes off the board 2 picks before us. Let's hope Wendell makes it 1 more pick here, and that would be my preferred pick. Terrion Davis-Price is still there, 14 picks after ADP.
Right. I mean, he's obviously the clear second choice, but we're happy to get him right.
Yeah, and in this range then there's we get an option of both of them, and actually Alex Pierce goes off the board back-to-back with Paris Campbell, so those teams taking the shots on the Colts. I think we go Wendell here. There is other running backs that we do like later on as well.
I think in another construction, the fact that he would correlate with San Francisco, he's a value, would probably push Terrion Davis-Price ahead for me.
Yeah, we have made the bet on the passing game, and you're hoping that Trey Lance gets the positive rushing touchdowns and things. So it's kind of a bet against itself if we go with TDP there. So he is somebody.
And we're already kind of like well invested in running back.
Yeah. So looking now at our current draft, we have 2 quarterbacks. We're set there. We have 2 tight ends. I think we're set there. 4 running backs, 7 wide receivers. What way do you think we should be looking to finish this out from a construction point of view in terms of running backs and wide receivers? We have 3 picks remaining, so how do we want to see it? It probably feels like 1 wide receiver, 2 running backs probably, but do you want to pivot that to 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver? Or do you just want to see what best available options come to us here in the last couple of rounds? I would be very interested, based on not taking the Patriots options so far. The one player that I'm very interested from the Patriots is Tyquan Thornton. I think we can potentially get him in the last round here, is usually where I would go and get him. Kendrick Bourne is a Patriots option as well. Is there anyone, though, specifically that you're looking? And the last thing is the build overall, as we're 1 pick away.
So I think we're actually looking at pretty classic 2-5-9-2 here. With the anchor, we've invested in running back, so I don't think we need the 6. Especially if we get Marlon Mack here. And then I think we kind of just take flyers on wide receivers to end things out. What do you think? Anybody wide receiver sticking out to you here that?
Not that we have to go and get at this ADP. Not really sold on Marlon Mack, but I have been drafting him as well. I know my conversation on Marlon Mack has been, we talk about like a running back that's probably going to get to work to start the season, probably gets a certain amount of carries, but the difference in him and a dead zone running back is that he is going in the 16th round.
Right.
He feels like, but he has that similar profile where if we're 4 weeks into the season and Marlon Mack isn't getting any touches, I wouldn't be surprised. But
right.
I mentioned earlier the Achilles injury. He is now a further year removed from that Achilles injury. So we'll see if he has some of that, potential explosiveness back. But yeah, I think when we're in the 16th round, and the other part of it is he is now the 5th running back on this roster. I think that is a lot more stable than going with him, in some 0 RB builds. But I have been drafting him a couple of times, but it's one of those kind of hold your nose picks when you're
right
on the roster.
I mean, if you get 20 points from him in week 16 or week 17, like that's a big deal. Like when you get him this late, you don't need them to be live for 35-point games.
I thought you were going to say if he got 20 points over the course of all 17 games, but we'll see how he does in week 17.
Yeah. So probably not
over under on 20 points for the entire season for Marlon Mack. Which is more likely, less than 20 points or a 20-point game in the fantasy finals?
I would say under 20 points for this season is probably less likely.
Well, that's positive. That's a really positive. At least we're in a good spot with that one. We are now wrapping into the last couple of rounds here. The players that are in were heavily, and the younger players, I guess we'll say. We have Taquan Thornton, Quez Watkins, Laviska Shenault. The bounce back, is it coming? Then we have a lot of our running back targets and Chris Evans, Dante Foreman, Dearness Johnson.
Just tossing them in.
I think at this point, ADP really does go out the window a bit. It's interesting though that we have Kendrick Bourne as an option. I think you're probably better to go Bourne at this ADP versus Thornton, but it's up to you. How do you feel about the Patriots?
Listen, we're taking stabs in the 17th round. It is not. I don't think it's that important.
And I'm also not against taking both of them, but we'll take Bourne here because it is like based on ADP. It's a smarter one. Interesting here that we do see the heads up. So what plays out now? You have to go back in. What turned off? Okay.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I guess you just have to be paying attention, which shouldn't be a problem for Ben and Sean.
So we are now into the 18th round. It'll be our final pick. So we have our 8 wide receivers. So we're going a 9 wide receiver builder. We're just waiting to see. And I mentioned there that I wouldn't be against taking Taquan Thornton also. It kind of gives you the player that I think could have the upside and then the extreme upside rookie play. What's your thoughts on taking both of those guys?
I think that it's like the Patriots is not like an offense that I'm heavily targeting. Like they have all this confusion about who's going to be in charge of the offense. Apparently,
I sometimes wonder, do they, or are they just portraying that?
Yeah, and that's possible, but it's also like an offense where you know how they want to play, and that way is true. Rotating through 5 different running backs, so that does give you some hesitation. But on the other hand, like you talked about, you don't need that much upside from your round 17 and 18 guys. Like it could be true that Kendrick Bourne is a guy you need in week 15 or 16, and then Taquan Thornton is a guy who puts up your ungodly amounts of points in week 18. Like that is very possible.
Taquan Thornton could be your Jamar Chase, and Kendrick Bourne could be your Tyler Boyd. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically. Maybe they're just like perfect comparisons for T. Higgins T. Higgins or Kendrick Bourne is the guy you need in week 16.
Yeah.
And then Thornton is the guy you need in week 17.
So we are 2 picks away here at this particular point. But how do you feel about it in terms of like wide receiver flyers? Have you anyone else that you'd be looking to target? Looking at some of the
I like Quez Watkins quite a bit in that department.
The other one, we haven't stacked anyone back against the 49ers from the Raiders, but there isn't really any options here that are going to excite you, so we're probably passing on that.
We're kind of playing a steamroll here. I'm not seeing anybody here that really screams at me.
Yeah, and I think we go wide receiver here and settle with 5 running backs, but it's up to you if you want to dash in, for example, Chris Evans. But Thornton or Watkins, I'll let you make the pick. We have about 10 seconds to go.
I mean, I've got Thornton there. I guess I've no issues with him. It's just one of those ones where it's like, how could you have that strong a conviction on either of them?
Yeah. My reason there for that is that we have the stack as well with the 49ers that would lean me towards it. I have nothing against Quez Watkins, but in terms of drafts, I haven't been drafting Kendrick Bourne very often. I have been kind of waiting it out and trying to get Thornton, and that's just like, he could be nothing, but he could also be somebody who's a major part of this offense.
I think as well, another thing that broke it in favor of Thornton there and over Quez. I've been drafting Quez, whereas I haven't really gotten a whole lot of Thornton, and I'm like, well, what is that really a 0 for me? It's not. Like, is it a 3%? I'd like to have some like level of exposure there.
So we'll have a look through the rosters, things stand out as we finish up. So we did start with Stephon Diggs, Saquon Barkley, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, George Kittle. Then we had J.K. Dobbins, Trey Lance.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I obviously trying to not mind my dog at the same time.
That's okay. It wasn't not too bad. So I'll run through the team here, and then we'll get thoughts. So looking at the final roster, we do have Stephon Diggs at the 106. Go back to the draft board, and I'll be able to see it better that way. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get you a bigger screen of it.
That one has the bottom of the screen just.
Oh, it does. Yeah, that's okay.
That's okay. So running back through the roster again, we have Stephon Diggs at the 106, Saquon Barkley, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, George Kittle, J.K. Dobbins, Trey Lance, Brandon Ayuk, Devin Singletary, Rondell Moore in the 10th round. Then we had Tua in the 11th round, Jahan Dodson, Michael Carter, Noah Fant, Wan'Dale Robinson, Marlon Mack, Kendrick Bourne, and Tyquan Thornton with 2 Patriots in those last 2 rounds. Looking back at how the draft played out, how are you feeling? There was a couple of spots where we there's only really the Burrow one is probably the one that we felt we missed out on overall. I don't think Hunter Henry might have fitted in there over Michael Carter, but looking back at who went in the Noah Fant range, there's not a huge amount that we have missed out on there. What's your feelings on how the draft played out as a whole?
Obviously we had the dream start. We were kind of questioning, do we really should we go Eckler? But given out how the rest of the team has played out, I'm glad that we went Diggs. Like we said, we really do. It's really hard not to see Saquon in the first round. By the end of the draft season, so delighted to get him in the second. Huge value on T. Higgins. We get that kind of correlation with Diggs. Nice value on Waddle. I talked about this. We got the kind of cutoff. We got the last in the tier of elite. And I know some people would go down and say, yeah, let's say TJ Hawkinson is the last elite. But I do think that George Kittle and Hawkinson are in a very different tier. Kittle is one where I think you really do have that strong. It is a strong tight end bet. I think J.K. Dobbins over Joe Burrow. And that's probably going to be one of the biggest decisions of this draft. We could have our 2v2 is almost J.K. Dobbins or Joe Burrow versus like a Ed Shua and Darrell Henderson or something like that. Like, would you rather Joe Burrow or Darrell Henderson, or Tua Tagovailoa and J.K. Dobbins?
To be honest, I think for the way the draft is split, like, does Darrell Henderson outscore J.K. Dobbins? It is potentially going to happen, but I'm with the build at the running back position. I think we take another running back if we had passed on Dobbins,
right?
And I think we're pushing running back. Like, we got Singletary, but I think we're possibly looking into. We took Rondale Moore over Ken Walker. If we pass on Dobbins, we're probably looking to take Walker there at that point. It misses you out on Rondale Moore. Obviously, there's going to be a tail when the season ends if this team is successful or unsuccessful. But I'm not feeling too bad, particularly in how it allowed us to work out the rest of the roster. So based on who else we have, I like how that played out. So for example, if we take,
having that kind of J.K. Dobbins upside, particularly at the end of the season from the 6th round, that does feel really nice. It feels better. That over like a Darrell Henderson feels better than like Joe Burrow over Tua, just because the relative upside at running back just matters a lot more.
And we may have done this, like we done something similar in our last draft, but we may have went Joe Burrow, Trey Lance, but at the same time, the way the roster played out to get Brandon Ayuk then in the next round to already have George Kittle, I think like that all kind of brought a more positive spin to it. If we didn't get, say, Brandon Ayuk and it's just Kittle and Lance, maybe we don't feel the same way. Whereas we didn't really, even looking through the rest of the draft, we probably don't have a chance to really pair Boyd in there with where he goes in this draft. So that leads us to just Burrow and Higgins on that stack. So I think it's played out pretty well. But what I like to do, and this is something for people who listen to RotoViz Overtime or Stealing Bananas, you'll hear this conversation sometime, is who is going to be in the 1st and 2nd round in 2023, for example. And when we look at it, I don't know if J.K. Dobbins makes it that far, but like J.K. Dobbins with a good season this year at his age and at his profile is going to be a 3rd, 4th round pick. He's going to be somebody who ascends. Right. I don't see Darrell Henderson being a 6th round pick next year, even if things go well. There's still going to be competition. He's going to be, I just don't see the same profile with those two running backs. And then we also look at Tua at the moment, like I mentioned, with the wide receivers he has. If he comes out and has a breakout season, he's right into that, 7th, 8th round discussion next season. Mm-hmm. He's into the Justin Fields discussion. Justin Fields in this one went to pick 94. Tua goes 32 picks later to pick 126. So I think he's pushed up there. He's elevated. So that's why I'm not against it. I can see ways where that plays out. And if those things play out for this roster, then this roster is, right, cards that you're going to end up having, 10 top 7 round picks, if that makes sense. That's where the advantage can come.
We're going to have 18 first-round picks on this team.
It's pretty much, in the 12-team format next year, at least 18 of these guys are going to be in the 1st round. That's the facts.
I think as well, the other thing about that decision, and obviously we went the other way last week. We went for Joe Burrow last week. I don't believe J.K. Dobbins was available at that pick. And J.K. Dobbins is just one of those unique players, unique opportunities where I think you bend the rules a little bit more. You change your behavior a little bit more to get him, just because you have that true like top upside.
I agree with that. And looking at how this draft played out, so Josh Jacobs goes at the 51st pick, so 503 in the 5th round. Then Waller went. Then we took Kittle at that particular point. After that point, then David Montgomery is the only running back that went between our pick and the next pick that we had. He went 2 picks before, but when we talked about Kittle, some of the players that we liked in that range I mentioned were Bateman and Metcalf. They both go off the board in the next 2 picks. The next pick is Godwin, then Amon-Ra St. Brown, then Kyler Murray, Dalton Schultz, Jalen Hurts, DeAndre Hopkins, Russell Wilson, Darnell Mooney. Like, we got into a spot there where that next pick is pretty much going to be Joe Burrow or J.K. Dobbins. There wasn't and after that point that he gets to there, I think you have to probably take it there on him. And I'm higher on Dobbins than most people, but that's a nice spot to get him. And it's in the dead zone, but it feels like he is being severely undervalued, and you're getting an injury discount as well at the moment. The other note
I wouldn't actually. I know I'm the RB guy, but I think this is much less of a dead zone than it would be in prior years, where like you see him go alongside a guy like Michael Thomas, whereas 2 years ago the opportunity cost at wide receiver is just much higher. It's like it would have been considerably higher, whereas our opportunity cost here it's not much. The other thing I wanted to point out, I see you mentioned Josh Jacobs in at pick 51. They made Josh Jacobs play the first 2 series at least in the Hall of Fame game last night.
Yeah.
Okay, well you didn't take his 5th-year option. You're playing him in a Hall of Fame game, and people are kind of hanging on to the upside that he showed at the end of last year. At the end of last year, he was kind of like a true tree down, like kind of like bell cow back. But they've got an entirely new coaching staff, so like you throw that end of the year stuff like out the window. Like let's take it into consideration the new signal from the new regime, and that's telling us there's absolutely no way he should be going at pick 51. And not to rag on that one drafter too much. But I think that's also a kind of a sign where when you're drafting in August, if you can kind of process this new information as it comes, that is like an advantage. Whereas I think sometimes it can take a week to 2 weeks to really like feed into these ADPs.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I also think that looking at that, I was going to call out Rashad Penny, going to pick 70 in the end of the 6th round is probably not an ideal pick as well, even though I love Rashad Penny. So when we look through some of that roster, maybe we're in an 11-team league here, but we'll see how it goes. Don't want to be taking shots. Maybe we're completely wrong. Maybe it doesn't work out. But it was a super fun draft. Yeah, I'm really happy with how this draft has played out as a whole. It was super fun draft. I've really enjoyed running through the entire draft with Conor. I think this is one of my favorite teams on Underdog so far this year. So let's see how it goes. We have been trying to team up to take down one of these big tournaments. You can't beat them. You have to join them, as Draco beat us last year. So we'll see how it goes now as this season progresses. But I'm going to have to keep an eye on this team. It is a pretty fun looking one. If you're drafting over at Underdog Fantasy, remember you can use the promo code RotoViz to get yourself a 100% sign up bonus up to $100. Of course, make sure you're following Conor on Twitter at DricoOut. That is DRICOOUT. Find out all the work that he has got going on, all the stuff up on rotoviz.com that he's putting out. Incredible content. You can find him on the RotoViz best ball feed as well. I've done a number of different recordings over the last 2 months with him. Check out those. You kind of get a little bit of a preview into what is in those articles. So the links to all that will be in today's show notes. But thanks again, Conor, for jumping on. Hopefully this one takes home a nice bunch of cash, and I'll be heading over to the US shortly as well to meet up with you in person. So looking forward to that over at the Fantasy Football Expo. So a fun week coming up here for us.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to meeting you. Looking forward to seeing how this team does as well. And let's keep these draft streams going.
Yeah, fun time. So thanks to everyone who's listened in today. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. Until we're back with another one, have a good one.